Something here must be discerned between the lines. The physical ear will catch phrases and let them pass. The physical tongue will shape syllables and call it truth. It is not. The ear cannot hear grace. The tongue cannot utter grace. There is a faculty deeper than ear and older than speech. It knows before knowing. It recognizes before understanding. Let that be awake now. Grace is not a religious idea. Do not make a concept your God. Do not make an improved concept your God. Grace is a realm. It is a government. It governs from within, or it is not grace. Now, my kingdom is not of this world, not even an improved this world, not even a perfect this world. If it belongs to this world's measurements, its clocks and calendars, its ledgers and balances, it is of law and not of grace. We are not here to polish the human scene. We are not here to argue theologies or to defend traditions. We are here for only one thing: to know within ourselves when consciousness has stepped out from under law and has come under grace. That is all, and that is everything. If you are waiting for proof out here, you are late. Proof out here is an echo. It is always a second too late. The government is within, and only the within announces itself as peace, as release, as a quiet that does not bargain. Under law, you are the source. Under law, you add and subtract your days, you forecast your tomorrows, you carry your own weight and call it prudence. Under law, cause and effect sit in your chest like stones. Fear follows you the way a shadow follows your feet, and you call it common sense. There is no God in that. None. It is you, by yourself, with yourself, against yourself. Now then, grace enters when you cannot compute it. Grace is present when the mind stops asking how. There is a split second, listen to this. There is a split second in which thought yields and silence stands up. In that instant, government transfers. Nobody sees a flash of light. Nobody. Yet inside, authority changes hands. You do not sign anything. You do not promise anything. You only stop being the source. And you know it. My kingdom is not of this world. If that line is still an argument to you, the ear is listening. Let it pass below the words. Grace is not a belief you adopt. It is a realm you enter. It is recognized without demonstration, the way you recognize breathing without a mirror. The first scent of it is this: calculation ceases. The inner bargaining, the mental arithmetic, the contingency plans, they fall without being pushed. Why? Because the source is within, governing. Not advising, governing. And you feel it like the end of a long, unnecessary holding of breath. Now, stay very quiet. Let the ear be still. Let the government announce itself. Now then, let us be exact. Law, as we meet it in our days and nights, is not a courthouse. It is a habit in the mind. It measures, it compares, it forecasts, it bargains. It makes ledgers out of people and clocks out of hearts. Count the money, count the steps, count the calories, count the followers, count the favors owed. Do you see? Law is the consciousness that tries to nail the wind to the wall and call it safety. It makes promises to itself. If I arrange this, then that. If I say this, they will say that. If I pray this way, I will get that result. Cause and effect with your name on the cause. And so the burden sits on your chest. You become the source, and the universe shrinks to your reach. From that moment, fear is born. Not as a feeling to be consoled, but as a logic. If I don't plan it, it won't happen. If I make a mistake, everything collapses. If I do not keep the plates spinning, they will crash and I will be blamed. That is fear as a theology. It is the worship of a private creator called me. When we fear, we confess, I am trying to live this life without the government of grace. Under law, vigilance becomes virtue. Tension becomes prudence. Sleep is bribed and never satisfied. And always, time is your instrument. Yesterday provides the regret you study. Tomorrow holds the threat you calculate. Try to live a minute from now. You cannot. Try to fix an hour ago. You cannot. Yet under law, you live there, past and future, because the present offers no handle to a mind that must control. Understand me. Law is not evil. In this world, it measures your cloth and balances your books. It schedules trains. It tallies doses. It can weigh the flour, but it cannot bake the bread of life. It can count the notes, but it cannot hear the music. Useful as a tool, deadly as a god. When you enthrone cause and effect as deity, you will bow to what you fear and obey what you distrust. That is tyranny. Under law, prayer itself turns to bargaining. If you send the supply, I will be grateful. If you heal, I will testify. That is not prayer. That is contract law in religious clothing. Under law, you watch the outer scene as your scoreboard. You award blame and credit as if persons were sources. You keep a private court in the mind. Verdicts, sentences, appeals. And after each judgment, more fear, because the eye must keep its universe in order one more day, one more hour. Now, draw the line. In law you live in time. In grace you do not. In law you are the cause. In grace there is only source. The difference is not vocabulary. The difference is where the government rests. Do not ask, do I know the right words? Ask, has the calculating stopped, even for a breath? If not, you are still worshiping a clock, a calendar, a ledger, and calling it truth. Nobody computes their way into grace. Nobody. The question, and only this, is whether you have stepped out from under personal management into inner government. When that happens, fear has no argument left. When it has not, every argument is fear. Now then, if there is to be any grace, it will not be yesterday, and it will not be tomorrow. There is no yesterday in God, and there is no tomorrow in God. My kingdom is not of this world, and time belongs to this world. Time is a device of management. Now is a state of being. The kingdom is not in time. The kingdom is now. Try it. Try to live a minute from now. Put your breath there. Put your heartbeat there. Try to stand there 1 minute ahead. It is a vacuum. It is a picture the mind draws and then worships. A forecast is not a life. A plan is not a presence. All the fear of law lives in that empty minute, and all the regret of law lives in a minute that is gone. But life does not live there. Life, being, only happens now. Whenever the rose blooms, it is now. Not a rehearsal bloom, not a remembered bloom. Now. Prayer, then, is not the mind asking God to enter time and make corrections. That is still law speaking to its idols. Prayer is relocation. We are the ones who move. We move out of the circuitry of time, out of the mental factory where cause and effect grind us down, and we stand in the kingdom consciousness. There, we discover God did not come. God is. Not I was, not I will be. Is. And in that is, the burden of time drops without a fight. How does it happen? Not by sentences, not by better arithmetic. It happens in a split second. Hear that. In the split second when a thought stops and you have silence. Not a holy speech, not even a holy feeling. Silence. In that half breath, something of spirit rushes in. Authority changes hands. You know it because the clock falls off your shoulders. You are not pushing outcomes down the road. You are being carried in the present. The concern that was stretching itself across tomorrow has no place to stand. It cannot live in now. Do not make a project of this. Do not try to manufacture special moments. The now is not manufactured. It is remembered. It is the only thing that has ever been true. When consciousness abides there, three evidences appear, not as medals for moral improvement, not as credit for good behavior, but as signs that government has shifted. First, the calculation stops. The inner bargaining collapses because you are no longer the cause. Second, blame and credit lose their fascination. The outer scoreboard goes dark because persons cease to be sources. Third, silence becomes more authoritative than thoughts. A wordless assurance governs where arguments used to shout. We will take them in order. For the moment, see this much. Grace is not a future attainment. Nobody attains now, tomorrow. Nobody. The only doorway is here. The only time is this. And the only practice is to stop long enough, still enough, that the split second can do what words never will. Transfer you from the world's clocks to the kingdom's government. My kingdom is not of this world. It is not of time. It is now. Now then. The first sign is very exact. The inner compulsion to figure it out begins to fall away. You notice it in the places where it used to be loudest. Supply, outcomes, timing. The old habit starts a sentence. How will it come? When will it come? Through whom will it come? And then, as if the hand is gently removed from the abacus, it stops. Not because you have a better plan, because the sense of being the provider has been dismissed. You are no longer management. You are not the source of your own life. Do not misunderstand me. Organization is not calculation. You keep an appointment. You answer your mail. You stock the pantry. You balance the checkbook. But you do not balance the universe. You do not put yourself under the lash to make tomorrow safe. The calendar is a tool. It is not a god. The clock measures an hour. It cannot govern the appearing of grace. Under law, you run your lists and secretly believe that if you check every box, the blessing will be earned. Under grace, you may still write the list, but the inner bargaining is gone. There is no auction for favor. There is only this quiet. The source within is governing. Anxiety tells on itself. When fear tightens, it is not announcing danger. It is confessing theology. It says, I am counting on making my demonstration without God. It may dress itself in religious words. I must build my consciousness. I must hold the truth long enough to bring the supply. Contract law in spiritual clothing. If you peer under the language, you will find the same confession. I, by personal effort, must cause the effect. That is law. That is why the stomach turns. The I has hired itself again as manager of life and knows it cannot do the job. What then is the felt shift? Relaxation. Not passivity, not neglect. Relaxation as the end of self-appointment. The shoulders drop because there is no private world to carry. Movement continues, but the strain is missing. Steps are taken because they are given now, not because tomorrow threatens. You pick up the phone when that inner nudge stands up, not because a deadline is shouting at you. There can be an outer deadline and no inner deadline. There can be a bill due and no burden to invent a source. The river moves of itself. You place the boat in the current and steer. You are no longer damming, pumping, forcing. You are abiding. The government is within. When calculation stops, a channel is cleared that no human strategy could open. Supply is not manufactured. It is revealed. The spring was always there, but the sand of personal forecasting kept covering it. Remove the sand, and it rises of itself. My kingdom is not of this world, not of time. Therefore not of your schedules, not of your inducements, not of your bargains. The effect called supply appears as a byproduct of alignment, not as a wage for effort. You did not cause it. You consented to be governed by it. How is this maintained? Catch the first stir of math beginning in the mind and refuse to sign the contract. Return. Now. Let a split second of silence interrupt the equation. In that instant, the burden slips from the I to the I that is. You may still go to work. You may still send the invoice. But you will know the truth. You are not the provider. You are not even a partner. There is only source, and you are its transparency. That knowledge, felt, ends the bargaining. It ends the forecasting. It ends the fear. Nobody calculates their way into grace. Nobody. You relax into it, and the government proves itself by governing. Now then, the second sign is this. The outer scene stops being your theology. Under law, appearances are taken as verdicts. The mind puts on robes, sits as judge, and demands a case. Who failed me? What did I do wrong? What should the world be by Tuesday? It moralizes weather, markets, moods, and people. If the plan succeeds, it crowns a hero. If the plan fails, it names a culprit. The hunt never ends because the courtroom is inside. And the sentence is the same. You are still your own God, attempting to read heaven through headlines. Hear the correction that the ear cannot bear the first time. There is no God in the human scene. My kingdom is not of this world. Not even an improved this world. The moment you look out there and try to read favor or absence in events, you have returned to law. Sunlight warms the grateful and the ungrateful. Storms strike roofs without theology. The scene is effect, not cause. Grace does not sign its name on weather reports or balance sheets. Grace governs within, and the within announces itself as peace, not as headlines. Under grace, you stop accusing. Yourself, another, conditions. You stop crediting. Yourself, another, conditions. You no longer need a villain to explain a delay. You no longer need a savior in a body to explain an opening. Persons may appear as instruments. Do not mistake them for source. Nobody in this room is your provider. Nobody. Nobody. The hand that brings the envelope is not the treasury. The voice that offers a yes is not the government. The government is within. When blame and credit dissolve, compassion is born without effort. You are less quick to divide the room into clean and unclean, worthy and unworthy, right and wrong for all time. You feel the common exile of those living by law, and you refuse to deepen it with verdicts. Sectarian edges soften. You do not approve error, and you do not amplify it. You simply do not join the court. You move among all kinds without the armor of superiority, because you are not hunting confirmations. You are letting the inner government disclose itself as quiet presence. And presence does not argue. Now see the link to supply. As long as you blame or credit, your consciousness is externalized. Your good is on other lips, in other hands, behind other doors. You wait, not on God, but on personalities and conditions to align. That is bondage. Under grace, government is internal. Therefore, supply is never hostage to people, places, or times. If one channel closes, nothing has closed. If one name withdraws, nothing has withdrawn. The sun does not argue with a shutter, it simply looks for an opening. So do not praise the shutter when it swings, and do not condemn it when it sticks. Return within. Now. Let a split second of silence cancel the trial, and in that untroubled court, the effect called supply will appear without defendant, without plaintiff, without applause, because it was never caused out there. It is the nature of the kingdom to govern, and where it governs, blame and credit have no more office. Now then, the third sign comes as a moment so slight the ear will miss it, but the heart will know it. A thought is running. It is building a case, announcing a fear, composing a prayer. Then it stops. Not because you forced it, not because you out-argued it, but because something older than thought stands up. A quiet certainty takes its seat where the narrator sat. The room inside changes government. You do not make a proclamation. You do not hear a trumpet. But authority has moved, and you know it. Do not mistake this for trance or for the thrill of emotion. Not ecstasy, not lethargy. This is sobriety without weight. It is alertness without nerves. The mind that was trying to be God is dismissed. The silence that is God's presence becomes more authoritative than any sentence the mind could ever shape. In that order, a single unworded knowing is stronger than 100 correct statements. Not because statements are wrong, but because at last they bow. Operationally, this is not more affirmations, not more willpower, not more spiritual study. We are not piling bricks. We are not muscling the gate. We are pausing, deliberately, reverently, repeatedly, until the split second can find us. The pause is not blankness. It is consent. It is the ceasing of private authorship, so that spirit may be spirit in its own way, its own tempo, its own channels. Try to witness this. The breath begins to reach for a next anxious thought, and before it can catch hold, you yielded. One half breath of unclenched being. In that unclenching, something flows that was waiting at the door. Not because you called it, but because you stopped barring the door with words. Why is this the mechanism of healing and supply? Because the mind does not make grace. The mind obscures what is. It is the hand stirring the pond and then complaining of the ripples. When it yields, the surface clears, and what has always been present is visible as guidance, as right action, as sufficiency. Not imported, revealed. Not earned, disclosed. In that split second, fear loses jurisdiction. The earth of appearances, so solid a moment ago, melts from authority and takes its true place as effect. Then what we call healing, what we call supply, appears. Not because we convinced God, but because we stopped impersonating God. Listen closely. The sign is not that you never think again. Thoughts return. The world continues. The clock goes on measuring. But now silence outranks them. A concern may present itself, and you do not sprint to manage it. You return. Now, let the split second speak first. From that authority, you will find yourself dialed to a number you had not planned, or resting where you would have hustled, or moving where you would have delayed. The act that results is clean. It carries no residue of fear because it was born of government, not of guessing. This is why supply becomes effortless. Not because you refuse labor, but because labor is no longer the engine of your good. You are not producing outcomes by strain. You are letting the inner government disclose what already is. The eye relaxes, and the river that was always running is no longer dammed by private intention. My kingdom is not of this world, therefore not of its pressure, not of its timelines, not of its bargains. In the split second when thought yields, the government of grace is felt. And where it governs, supply is the natural weather. You do not chase it. You abide. And it appears as the climate of a life not self-run. A life lived in the now, where silence is law. Now then, let us say it plainly, so the ear does not make a project of it. Grace does not come into the human scene to repair its furniture. Grace does not oil the gears of cause and effect. Grace lifts you, consciousness, out of that system and sets you in a kingdom where supply is native, where sufficiency is the climate, not a prize. My kingdom is not of this world, not even an improved this world. Therefore, the way of supply is not that the world becomes kinder. The way is that you are governed from within, and the world appears to fall in step because effect always follows cause. Under law, you chase effects. Money is an effect. Security is an effect. Recognition is an effect. You run after them, and, when caught, they already taste like fear because you must keep them. That is labor. That is manipulation. Under grace, you rest in cause. What is the cause? The indwelling government, the I that is. Not I will be, is. Rest there, and effects take their rightful place, coming, going, arranging, dissolving, in right proportion, without drama, without the panting of personal effort. Do not hear effortless as laziness. Do not hear it as fantasy. Effortless means the absence of fear labor, the absence of the personal burden to make tomorrow safe, the end of engineering people and conditions to feed an anxious God called me. You may be moved to act swiftly. You may be moved to give generously. You may be moved to work through the night quietly. But the action, the giving, the working are not strain because they are not authored by you. They are obedience to what is already governing. Spirit acting as you is rest even when the hands are full. Spirit speaking through you is quiet even when the room is loud. The river carries the boat. The oar is only guidance, never propulsion by panic. The paradox stands. Grace does not improve the outer scene. It governs the one who stands within it. From that governance, the scene reshapes as effect. Not as proof for neighbors, not as a trophy for your altar, as a byproduct of being rightly placed. If one channel dries, you do not collapse. Cause has not moved. If one plan shatters, you do not weep theology into the shards. Cause has not failed. You return. Now. A split second of silence reseats you in government, and from that seat the next step is given, not ground out. This must be practiced until it is effortless to be effortless. Hear that. Not once, not on special days, not only at dawn with candles. Throughout the day, you will watch the mind reach for law, reach for control, reach for bargaining. Do not scold it. Do not dramatize it. Interrupt it. A half breath. A yielded second. Let silence take the first word. Let it have the last. In that rhythm, the realm shift stabilizes. Calculation ceases as a habit. Blame and credit dissolve as reflex. Silence becomes authoritative by right. And when governance is steady, supply is steady. Not because you are clever, not because the world has reformed, but because the source within is governing, and effects cannot help but align. Nobody can do this for you. Nobody. Not the room, not the teacher, not the text. You do it by ceasing to do it, by consenting to be governed. Then the strain leaves its throne. Then the panic retires. Then effort turns to obedience, and obedience proves itself as a life in which supply arrives as naturally as breath. On time, because there is no time in the kingdom. Abundant, because cause is infinite. Effortless, because you are no longer the cause. Now then, there is a distinction we must make without soft edges. Up to a point, we are students. We read, we listen, we repeat. We gather phrases like provisions for a journey. We practice the pause. We test the now. We look for the split second and sometimes miss it. That is honorable. That is necessary. Up to a point, we are seekers after God, faithful in our way but still living, much of the day, under the suspicion that outcomes depend on us. We are still managing ourselves into peace. Then, there is a change that is not a theory and not gradual. There is a definite moment in time and space when this stops being a lesson and becomes a life. It may be at 10 o'clock. It may be at midnight. It may be at 3 in the morning when the room is dark and the mind has finally tired of hearing itself. Something inside shifts chairs. Authority changes seats. Where the I sat with its ledgers and alarms, silence sits. In that instant, the weight of self-responsibility slips like a coat you did not know you were wearing. You relax. Not a laxness of duty, a dismissal of authorship. From that moment, you never again feel responsible for manufacturing your own life. You can forget it and remember it in cycles, but the axis has moved. The government is within. Before that moment, even with sincere practice, there is a private court running. You self-check. Did I say it right? Did I hold it long enough? What if I lose it? Fear keeps counsel with fear. Supply looks like timing and people, and you keep watch at their doors. After that moment, you wake within the same world, and yet you know you are being carried. The calendar remains on the wall, but it no longer stands over you as law. You move, but you are moved. You plan, but the plan is straw compared to the quiet instruction that rises without argument. You sense a river you did not start, and you consent to float while guiding the oar. Do not try to manufacture this transition. You cannot schedule birth. You cannot talk light into sunrise. You prepare, yes, but not by constructing a ladder to God. You prepare by relentless returning to now. You prepare by letting the split second do what words cannot. You prepare by consent, by ceasing to bar the door with your sentences and your fears. Then, when it pleases grace, the door swings of itself, and you find yourself on the other side, without motion. How do you know it is not imagination? The 3 signs tell you. At first, they come as glimpses. For an hour, calculation ceases. For a conversation, blame and credit lose interest. For a breath, silence outranks every thought. Then the old reflex returns, and you begin again. That is still studenthood. After the transition, these signs stabilize. Calculation does not find much to hold on to. It has been replaced at the source. Blame and credit have no court to report to. The judge has resigned. And silence is not a visitor. It is the resident authority. You may wobble, you may be tempted, but the seat of government has been reassigned, and you know it by the ease that does not argue. Nobody can hand you this. Nobody. It is not in my keeping. It is not in a book's keeping. It is in your consent to be governed. Return. Now. Over and over, until the moment that is not caused by you arrives without your help. Then live from there. Truth will have stopped being studied and will begin living itself as you. And you will find that the one thing you could not produce, being carried, has been the way all along. My kingdom is not of this world. It is not of time. It is the now in which this transition is both given and kept. Now then, the rule is negative because law loves projects. Grace refuses them. Give up yesterday. Give up tomorrow. Return, return, return. Not as poetry, as government. The physical ear will try to make a slogan of it. Do not let it. This is instruction for the second you are in, not a mood, not an ideal, a placing of yourself where the kingdom already is. Now. Watch the subtle temptation. Even the spiritual mind tries to live a minute from now. It will rehearse outcomes, draft thank you notes to blessings not yet born, compose its humility in advance, and then call it faith. That is law dressed for church. That is management in holy robes. The instant you begin to stage the future, you have enthroned cause and effect again, and fear takes your measurements for a new suit. Can you live a minute from now? You cannot. Can you repent an hour ago? You cannot. Then stop building altars to empty minutes. Practice is immediate and simple. The first flutter of calculation rises. Pause. Do not improve the thought. Let it stop. 1 half breath. A split second of unowned mind. In that unclenching, the government that is already present takes the seat. You may use a word, not as magic, but as a door hinge. I can of mine own self do nothing. And then be quiet enough to let that be true. Listen inwardly, not for sentences, for the authority beneath sentences. When it is felt, move or do not move as it instructs. Act from silence, not toward silence. Understand fear correctly. It is not your temperament. It is not a flaw to be ashamed of or a story to rehearse with friends. Fear is a theology. It is the hidden doctrine that you are your own cause. Withdraw consent. Each time the pulse quickens, hear what it is preaching. I must run the universe, and refuse to worship at that altar. Turn, now. One moment of yielded being breaks the sermon of fear and re-enthrones the source within. This is how you stay under grace through the day. 100 little returns. Between calls. At the sink. In the doorway. At the red light. Do not wait for quiet rooms and incense. Kingdom is not of this world. Therefore, it is not of circumstances. It is of now. Each return restores the 3 signs. Calculation cannot live in now. It loses its breath. Blame and credit cannot stand in now. The court is closed. Silence regains the bench and speaks with the tone that ends argument. And supply? It resumes its natural flow because nothing is blocking the spring. Not your yesterday, not your tomorrow. Only the present transparency through which cause pours as effect. Nobody can return for you. Nobody. Not the teacher, not the text, not the room. You return. Now. And when you forget, return again. Now then, again. Past slips its hooks. Future drops its bait. Grace governs. And where grace governs, life is effortless in the only place it can ever be lived. Here. Now then, let us finish where we began, but with the weight lifted. The pressure of saving yourself is not your religion anymore. It is over. You are not the engineer of your tomorrow. You are not the treasurer of your life. You are being governed. Hear that as final, not a promise, a government. When this is realized, even in degree, the breath comes back, the jaw unclenches, and life, the same life, is no longer your private factory. It is the movement of grace through a transparency called you. What becomes of you in a world still arguing with itself? You do not take sides with its fears. You do not stand as judge, and you do not stand as beggar. You stand as blessing. Not by trying to bless. Blessing is what leaks from consciousness when the court is closed. When you stop interpreting the scene as God's scoreboard, you stop condemning and you start seeing. You see through. You see the same one self under 1,000 costumes. You correct less and you presence more. You carry no campaign to improve this world. You live out from a kingdom not of it, and that presence dissolves edges without debate. Re-anchor it now. My kingdom is not of this world, not of its rewards, not of its punishments, not of its timings. Therefore do not seek peace as the world gives it, by arranging furniture, by adjusting others, by hoarding tomorrows. Seek the inner kingdom. Abide there. Let peace follow as weather follows a season. Let supply follow as fruit follows root. You will not need to track it. You will not need to testify for it. It will appear where you are, because cause is where you are. Do not depend on anyone for this. Nobody. Nobody. Not a teacher, not a partner, not a room. The source is within. The split second is available now. The government is present now. Your work is not a project, it is a consent. Return. Now. And again. And again. If you want to know where you stand, look gently, honestly. Calculation dropping? Good. Blame dissolving? Good. Silence taking the first word and the last? Good. Do not rush to add evidence. Do not rush to gather proofs. Live it and let the scene report as it must. Then supply? Do not chase it. Let it find you doing your Father's business, being still enough to be moved. It will come as right people at right moments without your hunt. It will come as ideas that arrive clean, not squeezed from worry. It will come as doors you did not knock on, or as a no that steers you to a better yes. It will come as sufficiency that does not inflate you and lack that does not frighten you. Because both are reduced to their true size, effects around an inner government. So go out, but not out of now. Be in the world, but not of its breathless bargains. Keep no accounts except the inner one. Am I being governed? If so, that is the blessing. And the blessing blesses. Quietly, inevitably. Effortless supply is the fragrance, not the flower you pluck. Remain the root in the unseen kingdom, present, quiet, governed from within. And let the world feel the shade.
Nobody can return for you. Nobody. Not the teacher, not the text, not the room. You return, now. And when you forget, return again. Now then, again. Past slips its hooks. Future drops its bait. Grace governs, and where grace governs, life is effortless in the only place it can ever be lived, here. Now then, let us finish where we began, but with the weight lifted. The pressure of saving yourself is not your religion anymore. It is over. You are not the engineer of your tomorrow. You are not the treasurer of your life. You are being governed. Hear that as final, not a promise, a government. When this is realized, even in degree, the breath comes back. The jaw unclenches. And life, the same life, is no longer your private factory. It is the movement of grace through a transparency called you. What becomes of you in a world still arguing with itself? You do not take sides with its fears. You do not stand as judge and you do not stand as beggar. You stand as blessing, not by trying to bless. Blessing is what leaks from consciousness when the court is closed. When you stop interpreting the scene as God's scoreboard, you stop condemning and you start seeing. You see through. You see the same one self under 1,000 costumes. You correct less and you presence more. You carry no campaign to improve this world. You live out from a kingdom not of it, and that presence dissolves edges without debate. Re-anchor it now. My kingdom is not of this world, not of its rewards, not of its punishments, not of its timings. Therefore, do not seek peace as the world gives it, by arranging furniture, by adjusting others, by hoarding tomorrows. Seek the inner kingdom. Abide there. Let peace follow as weather follows a season. Let supply follow as fruit follows root. You will not need to track it. You will not need to testify for it. It will appear where you are because cause is where you are. Do not depend on anyone for this. Nobody. Nobody. Not a teacher, not a partner, not a room. The source is within. The split second is available now. The government is present now. Your work is not a project. It is a consent. Return, now, and again, and again. If you want to know where you stand, look gently, honestly. Calculation dropping? Good. Blame dissolving? Good. Silence taking the first word and the last? Good. Do not rush to add evidence. Do not rush to gather proofs. Live it, and let the scene report as it must. Then supply? Do not chase it. Let it find you doing your Father's business, being still enough to be moved. It will come as right people at right moments without your hunt. It will come as ideas that arrive clean, not squeezed from worry. It will come as doors you did not knock on, or as a no that steers you to a better yes. It will come as sufficiency that does not inflate you and lack that does not frighten you, because both are reduced to their true size, effects around an inner government. So go out, but not out of now. Be in the world, but not of its breathless bargains. Keep no accounts except the inner one. Am I being governed? If so, that is the blessing. And the blessing blesses, quietly, inevitably. Effortless supply is the fragrance, not the flower you pluck. Remain the root in the unseen kingdom, present, quiet, governed from within, and let the world feel the shade.